Bring in now the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus that is leading the charge against the American Health Care Act, as it's called, North Carolina Republican Representative Mark Meadows. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Allison. Great to be with you and Chris.
Great to have you. Why don't you like the bill as is?
You know, really, it keeps much of what people have complained when the president campaigned across America about repeal and replacement. The American people heard two things. Those that heard the repeal is that we would get rid of all the entitlements, we would get rid of the laws, the mandates, the taxes that go along with it. And then the ones who heard the replacement side of it, Allison, really were looking at, well, I want to make sure that if I have a pre-existing condition, that's covered. I don't get kicked off of my insurance plan. The president, and we agree with him, on both of those points that we have to deliver. This bill just doesn't do it. It's just one program that is going to replace a failed program that has a greater potential for failure.
But, I mean, specifically, what do you think is making it have failure? It does keep those things that you just talked about, the entitlements that people like, that voters say they really appreciate, the pre-existing conditions, the keeping your kids on the plan till they're 26. So what specifically don't you like?
Well, and Allison, I'll give you some specifics. One is that it creates a new entitlement, perhaps the first major entitlement, the largest major entitlement under a Republican president if Donald Trump signed this in. The other thing is, and the fundamental question, we're going to have all kinds of different scores, CBO scores, joint tax scores. The only score that really matters is, will it bring down health insurance premiums? This bill doesn't do it. It doesn't really create competition. It allows the government to come in and really prop up the insurance companies, and it won't drive down costs. So that's what we have to do. That's my major objection. If it lowers costs and provides those essential services, safety net for those who need it, I'm all on board. I can tell you Secretary Price yesterday and the Vice President agreed that we need to go ahead and make some modification to this bill. We put together a committee last night at the House Freedom Caucus late in the night to actually work on constructive changes. So hopefully we'll see some very good amendments, not only in the committees, but offered by rank and file members very soon.
But are you trying to repeal it wholesale first?
You know, yesterday we introduced a clean repeal bill. That was one thing that all of us had voted on. You know, when in the House and the Senate, and actually we sent it to President Obama's desk. Why send anything less to a Republican president than we sent to President Obama just a few months ago? And yet, at the same time, we agree that we have to have a replacement plan voted on in the same time frame, whether it's the same day or the same week, have real replacement and make sure that we get that done. Hopefully getting some Democrats to come along and help us there.
What about coverage, Congressman? Can you guarantee that one of the criticisms of the current bill is that possibly 10 million people could lose coverage under what the GOP presented this week? What about with your plan? Will many people lose their coverage?
Well, with the plan that the Freedom Caucus has supported is Dr. Rand Paul's. When we look at it, we believe that it actually will ensure more people. There's two fundamental questions, Allison. In North Carolina and in almost every single state, people are losing their coverage. We're down to one health care provider. They're having to make a choice between their mortgage and their insurance payment, and that's not sustainable. So we have to make sure that we do that. So any plan that we're going to support must look at making sure that those who are in harm's way have a protection, and we're committed to do that.
You know, speaking of choices, yesterday we had Congressman Jason Chaffetz on our program, and he said that, yes, some low-income people will have to make some choices about health care. Listen to this.
We're getting rid of the individual mandate. We're getting rid of those things that people said that they don't want. And you know what? Americans have choices, and they've got to make a choice. And so maybe rather than getting that new iPhone that they just love and they want to go spend hundreds of dollars on that, maybe they should invest in their own health care. They've got to make those decisions themselves.
What do you think, Congressman? Will people have to choose between things like their cell phone and their health care?
Well, they're already making choices now for those kind of things. They're having to make choices. I mentioned, I've talked to a number of people having to make choices between, do they put food on the table or pay for the health care. So we've got to drive the cost of health care down. I think that any GOP plan that gets 218 votes will not make them, force them to make those kind of choices. It'll provide a safety net. I know the president wants to do that. We're all in to help him to make sure that we get more people covered at less cost. And so that's a choice that I don't want any American to make, certainly don't want my family to make. And as we look at that, health care coverage and certainly health care in general is something that we need to make sure everybody has.